The landfill tax is just a tax on any waste that goes to landfill. In construction, that's soil, stones, chalks, clays, anything organic or inert. And as inert materials, they are charged at something called the lower rate. So the landfill tax will be £4 and 5p per tonne. Above that is what's called the standard rate, and that's £126 and 15p per tonne. Now the government is proposing that we remove the lower rate from 2030 and only charge the standard rate. And this could end up very costly, because as this example of a drainage system shows, which is going into a new development, not only is lots of land used for non-housing requirements, but lots of material is therefore removed from that site. And this is increasing with cycle lanes, grey water, ground source heat pump, and other features being required as part of a planning permission or building regulations. House builders will reuse as much material as they can back on the site, but sometimes it's just not possible to use any of it, especially on brownfield, and quite often you still have to send many of this muck away to landfill. But the landfill tax isn't just limited to homes. It will increase the cost for all projects. Commercial projects use as much of the footprint as possible, and even homeowners will pay more. In housing, if that lower rate is removed, the tax will rise from hundreds of pounds per home to between £5,000 and £50,000 per home. But the developer doesn't usually pay the landfill tax directly. They pay it as part of a service provided by the waste carrier, who also provide a waste ticket for every load or grab load taken away. So in this example of a waste ticket, the carrier is charged £264 to take up to 16 tonnes of muck away from the site. The landfill tax on this would be £64.18, and we know they charge £96 for a call out, because that's the aborted load charge. This means on this invoice, £103.82 or 39% is profit, and one development site could have tens, hundreds and even thousands of grab loads, which makes landfill tax a very expensive endeavour. And it means the cost isn't just that landfill tax, as we often discuss, but the operational costs and the profits made by the waste carrier. But that's not the end of their story, because some waste carriers pay no landfill tax. They will use the materials they take off a site to backfill a quarry or facility they own, and they do that via a disposal permit. A permit which is really easy to get, but the government, for various reasons including waste crime, is proposing to eliminate. The alternative to a disposal permit is a recovery permit, which is not as easy to get, because not only do you need a licence from the Environment Agency, but you'll also likely need planning permission from the council. Now the government is proposing to remove that disposal permit, requiring everyone to get a recovery permit, which some quarries may have. Any delay in obtaining that licence will expose operators to a £4 and 5p per tonne charge on their backfilling, which will obviously rise to £126 and 15p by 2030. And anyone that has dealt with local planning authorities and planning applications knows that delay is not an unlikely outcome. And of course the consequences of that delay are going to be more expensive waste material charges, high operational costs for quarries, and consequently more expensive construction materials, something industry just can't absorb. Some quarries may even shut down. So the disposal permit isn't just tax simplification, it's also a nature recovery enabler, something that isn't often discussed. With quarries, nature restoration is a key feature of that backfilling. Not only do they produce land for development, but parks, wetlands and reserves are all the mainstay of how that land is reclaimed. Hundreds and even thousands of sites every year reclaimed to nature, sometimes intentionally as part of land reclamation, sometimes by nature itself. It therefore seems perverse to remove a licence that doesn't just make tax simpler and reduce the cost for all construction projects, but is a massive benefit to nature itself. Treasury has assured industry that this is not a tax grab. This is about the circular economy. But the landfill tax will not deliver a circular economy. It's the last thing you put in place after you enable a strategy to have a circular economy and the mechanisms to do that, such as more soil landfills or soil storage or soil exchanges, which we simply don't have in the UK. More about that in a subsequent report that the NFB is doing. That'll be released in the next few weeks. But we need everybody in the industry to really push back and tell ministers that we will be part of any circular economy. We understand it, but there is so many things that need to be put in place in order to get there. And a tax grab is not going to achieve that, but it will kill all of government's growth plans. So say no to the landfill tax or the muckaway tax and support growth. We should all be in this together, not taxing the industry that will underpin any growth in the UK, that will literally build growth of our economy. I've been Rico Wojtulewicz. I'm Head of Policy and Market Insight for the National Federation of Builders, and we have spent far too long on this. So apologies to my members who have had constant emails, phone calls and messages, but this was too important to ignore.